So a couple of things before we start this video. I just want to let you all know this is something that I'll be doing on like 5th Thursdays of every month, but because July was all about Apollo, I decided to just let August be a little off, also because of when Power Rangers Day is and when I usually do my Power Rangers videos, and wanting my Power Rangers video to go up the week of Power Rangers Day, so, which I'm filming right after this. Anyway, so this month is going to be a little off of my normal schedule, so I do apologize for that, but starting up in September, we're going back to our regular scheduled programming on my channel now that everything is out about Apollo here. Now we can kind of go back to normal. Second thing, I do want to put on a disclaimer on this video. Sometimes I'll do it in text, but I do want to actually just say this in this format now. This video does come with talk of eating disorders, body dysmorphia, diet culture. If anything like that triggers you, there are a ton of other videos for you to watch on my channel. All of the cute, adorable Apollo videos are out now, so if you would rather watch one of those, go back to the videos that I posted in July and you will not be disappointed, I promise. So here we go. So let's talk a little bit about my journey with diet culture. As you guys know, I am on a health journey, and that started out as me wanting to actively lose weight for many reasons, one of which I've talked about this in the video. I'll link it at the end of this video if you guys are not aware of where I started on this journey. Most of which I have physical pain being at the size that I am, because I have a small frame and with a lot of extra muscle because I have just a large muscle content, plus a lot of fat on my body as well. So because of that, I have a lot of joint issues that I did not experience when I was in a smaller body. And I know kind of at the point in which the joint issues started, so I kind of know what I'm aiming for. I just want to be out of pain. Like, that's literally all I'm trying to do now at this point. So that's why I want to do that. However, as I've been going on this health journey, because when I lost weight the first time, because if you guys don't know, I was about this size in high school, and then I lost 75 pounds, and then I gained all of it back, plus some extra. So the last time I lost weight, I did not fix up here. I did not understand nutrition the way I do now. I also didn't understand what I was experiencing, which is what we're talking about today, is my journey with diet culture. And now I'm seeing a therapist, I actually have a good diagnosis now. I've always been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, some OCD stuff as well. Like sometimes I'm diagnosed with OCD, sometimes I'm not. I'm very much like on this, like, I'm like on the line with OCD, but a lot of what I've been told in the past by therapists who won't diagnose me with OCD is that it's probably just a symptom of my anxiety, which now is just a symptom of my PTSD. So yeah, so I was in 2020 diagnosed with CPTSD, or complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which has been an incredible diagnosis for me. At some point I'll sit down and talk about how I felt about that diagnosis and things like that. That's coming up in another health journey video going in the future. However, I just realized I didn't do my normal intro. Well, whatever. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Britt, and if you haven't subscribed yet, you probably should, because I normally talk about geeky things, but sometimes I sit on my couch with a glass or a mug of tea, herbal tea, because I can't have caffeine, and tell you guys a story of my health journey. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. It's into like 4 minutes into the video. Get over it. But yeah, so having this proper diagnosis now has really helped me get better into a better mental health space, where I am able to kind of learn more and take in better information as far as all of this stuff. Plus, I ended up seeing a dietitian, and in my search of looking for a dietitian, I found what's called intuitive eating. So I found myself an intuitive eating dietitian specifically. And I also have trainers at a gym that are helping me with making sure that I don't overexert myself while working out and things like that, as I've been known to do in the past. So I've got all these professionals that surround me, plus I have a wellness coach as well that I talk to once a month, thanks to my job. But so with all these professionals that surround me now, I really do feel like I'm in a better place to actually call it a health journey versus a weight loss journey, because I'm not even sure if it's necessarily a weight loss journey anymore. I don't own a scale. The only time I'm allowed to know my weight is if I am at the gym with my trainer, and only because I know my trainer can talk me down if the number on the scale triggers anything. My trainers are because there's 3 trainers at that particular gym, and I work with mostly just one of them now, but all 3 of them know about my PTSD diagnosis. They also know about my history with eating disorders. They also know my history of non-purging bulimia, which, if you guys are not familiar with that, it is a type of bulimia that my therapist talked about with me once, because I was like, well, bulimia is the only thing I've never done. So she's like, no, you have. And I was like, what? And so there's a thing called non-purging bulimia, where you binge, and instead of throwing it all up, you over-exercise to the point of, like, basically not good. Just to give you an idea, back when I was at my thinnest, I was walking 6 miles a day, plus I was also in the gym constantly working out. If I wasn't sleeping, eating, or in class, I was probably working out. So every single day, I never gave myself a chance to relax, and it just got to a point where it was very, very unhealthy, which I'm very careful now about using the terms healthy and unhealthy, because I don't like those terms anymore, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But at the end of the day, my brain was not healthy, and where I was emotionally was not healthy. And I had become so engrossed in this thing called diet culture. Now, a lot of people might roll their eyes at this concept, because a lot of people don't understand the dangers of diet culture. The thing with diet culture is that their intention is not for you to lose weight. Their intention is for you to yo-yo diet so that they can continue to make more and more money. They're not in it for your health at all. They may claim to be. And all of those weight loss things are that way. Juice cleanses. I'm sorry, you've got a liver and kidneys that are supposed to cleanse your body, and if they need extra help, then you should actually probably go to the hospital. Things like that, or keto, paleo, any of those fad diets, intermittent fasting is also diet culture. Weight Watchers, or whatever it's called now, WW, whatever, all of that is diet culture. Noom and all of those weight loss apps, those are all diet culture. It's a sneaky little bastard. Try not to swear in my videos, but man, a sneaky little bastard, let me tell you. Anyway, my journey with diet culture was a very interesting one, because it started out very, very young. So when I was young, I was always, well, I don't know, it's weird. So I was actually very tiny when I was about 4 years old. I was very, very tiny, very, very small boned. This is how we know that I have smaller skeletal structure. Plus some other testing that I've done in the past too, but for the most part, that's how we know I have a very small skeletal structure, because I was very, very tiny when I was young. At some point in the 90s, I started to gain weight. I was actually very active. I rode my bike every day during the summer, during basically months that we didn't have snow on the ground. I was riding my bike every single day. I did martial arts, I did soccer, I did softball for a good portion of my life. But yet I was still a little bit bigger, on the bigger side. And a lot of that is just genetics, because if you look at my family, not just my parents, but like my aunts, my uncles, all 4 of my grandparents, though you can't look at them at this point because all of them are dead now, but you know, I digress. My parents started to worry a little bit, and so they started to instill in me diet culture, and I don't blame them for it. I mean, it's very common for parents to instill diet culture into their children from a very young age. especially if you're a woman or a person. Like, okay, let's just do it this way. I'm sorry, because I am a firm believer in a non-binary sense of gender and sex, but just for the sake of this video, I am going to talk about it in a very binary sense, what people are advertising to. And I will go to my grave, and now I know a lot of men are probably going to argue this point. However, you do not understand what it's like to be a woman when it comes to diet culture. We are fed diet culture. We are the prime targets of diet culture. Men, yeah, you know, you get it to an extent, but dad bods are in. Like, honestly, Jack Black can get Kate Winslet, let's be real. I love The Holiday, it's such a good movie. But yet Melissa McCarthy would never end up with Brad Pitt. I rest my case. Anyway, so women are fed diet culture from a very young age because it is ingrained in us to understand that our worth is completely and utterly based on the size of our body. That changes over time, whatever that beauty standard is. I mean, at one point, Marilyn Monroe was considered the sexiest person alive, yet if she had been around in the early 2000s, she would have been the fat girl. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just the way it was. Because then in the early 2000s, it was, you know, very stick, thin women were in, and now and then for a long, long time, it was big-breasted women, which made me feel good because, like, hi, even at my thinnest, I was still a 36D. So, and I carry out. Anyway, not the point. Now it tends to be women that have very thin selves all the way down until their hips, and their hips are a bit bigger, and their butts are bigger, their thighs are bigger. That's the beauty standard now. Like, the beauty standard constantly is changing for women, and we are expected to match whatever that is and do it however you see fit to do it. And so that's why you see women falling victim to not only diet culture but eating disorders over their lifetime. Why I fell victim to eating disorders over my lifetime, because it's just way too much pressure when that's so ingrained in your head, and that's literally the only thing you can think about, because otherwise you're never going to find a man to marry you. Again, speaking from a very binary, heteronormative sense. But that's because that's where I grew up. I'm a cisgendered woman. I am also straight on the asexual spectrum, but I didn't understand that until like I was almost 30. So we're not going there. But so that's the world that I grew up in. That was my mindset growing up, right? Was I need to follow this standard. I need to look like Britney Spears in order to get a man to want to marry me. And that fed very much into that mentality, because the only two men that have ever shown interest in me in my entire life, I met them both while being at my absolute thinnest. And so that in itself also kind of triggered that in me, because no man was interested in me before I lost weight, and no man has really been interested in me that I've been interested in, I should say, since I've gained the weight back. So that just kind of instilled that mentality in me yet more and more and more. So diet culture is so scary, and this concept of this beauty standard that diet culture sets is also really, really scary. These tabloids that I used to buy, I used to have a subscription to Star magazine. Like, let's just let that sink in for a minute. But the reason why was because I looked forward to looking at all of these beautiful women that I could emulate, that I could try and look like, when at the end of the day I was never going to look like any of those women. At my thinnest, and here is a shot of me dancing on a YouTube video. You're never going to find it. It's on a channel that does still exist, but is somewhere far away. But this is a video of me dancing when I was at my thinnest, and I felt good. I looked good. I still had some pudginess, but that's because that's just the way my body is. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is that I didn't fit that beauty standard. And so because I didn't fit that beauty standard, I developed body dysmorphia, meaning I would look in the mirror and still see, when I was that size, I still looked in the mirror and I still saw the same person that you're looking at right now, who is much larger than that girl is right there in that video. But I still saw this, because all I saw was the pudginess that still existed and wasn't okay. Truth is, it was okay, because that's just my body. And my body was never supposed to be that size, which is why I gained the weight back. Also diet culture, but I digress. So what is diet culture? Diet culture is the concept that you have to lose weight in order to gain worth. And it has been around for a long time, but it has been so like just in your face, at least in my opinion, a lot more in your face since like the early 2000s, when Atkins became this big thing. And then all of a sudden it was like nobody wanted to eat another carb as long as they lived. And girl, you know, carbs are my best friend. So, but that's just it. Like things I've learned from my dietitian. Now granted, I am not a registered dietitian. I know basically a very baseline idea of nutrition. I have studied a lot of things about nutrition. I understand a lot of things about nutrition. But things I've learned about nutrition from my dietitian is carbohydrates is your body's main source of energy, which is why the keto diet works, is because you're basically putting your body into a different like dietary place. You're basically forcing your body, basically you're starving your body of carbohydrates so that you go into what's called ketosis, so that your body is burning fat instead of burning carbohydrates. You're literally starving your body. Plus it's your brain's like only source of energy, because if you guys don't know, I mean, that's what calories are. It's energy. It is measurable energy in and out, and macronutrients are pieces of those calories. And so carbohydrates are literally just energy. Things you eat to give your body energy, to feed your body. And it is the main source in which you should have in order to function properly, have your body function properly. So just keep that in mind. Like, I have learned so much from my dietitian that I've been able to break those barriers around diet culture so much that I look back at that girl who lost all that weight. I just want to go back in time and I just want to hug her. Obviously I don't, because I don't remember me going back in time and hugging her, but I would love to go back in time and just hug her and tell her, you're beautiful. You were beautiful before you lost all your weight. You're beautiful now. You're perfect no matter what size you are, and the size of your body does not indicate your worth. But I lost a ton of weight. I lost 75 pounds, and all of a sudden a linebacker from a football team was interested in me. Like, what? I don't know. Like, it just, it fed into it. You know, it kept feeding in, like, my brain just kept going, diet culture is good. Diet culture is perfect. And I have pretty much tried every single diet you can try under the sun except for the ketogenic diet. And I've never done Atkins either. But I've done, actually the majority of weight that I lost I did while I did the South Beach diet, which theoretically is supposed to be a lifestyle change, but it's still very diet culture because it's still very restrictive. It goes in phases. Phase 1 is the most restrictive. Phase 2 is like where you're supposed to lose the majority of your weight. And then phase 3 is like, well, now you're still supposed to basically eat like phase 2 for the rest of your life, but like you can have a snack if you want. But it's still very, very restrictive. So it's still very, very much diet culture. And I lost the majority of my weight doing the South Beach diet. I have done paleo. I have done so many diets under the sun. I have tried so many because I used to sit down at my computer and I would get on Google during the mid 2000s. I would get on Google because that's when I lost the majority of my weight, was the mid 2000s. I would get on my computer, I would go to Google, and I would search diets. Ways to lose 10 pounds in a week. Like, that's what I was looking for. Those were the kinds of things that I would Google back in those days. And I did. I lost a ton of weight. But you have to remember, too, is I did also kind of fluctuate between anorexia during that time and non-purging bulimia during that time. I never fixed my binge eating disorder. I would still binge. but I would only let myself binge. Like I would only have healthy food in my fridge. So if I binged, it would be on spinach or grapes. Like it was never something that I would never be able to binge on something like peanut butter or chocolate or things like that. When my binge eating disorder really came back full force was actually when Cosmo was a puppy. You guys saw the video where I struggled as a pet parent for the first time with a puppy, and I started binging again during that time pretty heavily, and I started to slowly gain weight back, but I never really noticed it because it was so subtle, so slow, that I didn't really realize it until I got my job at PetSmart. That's when I started realizing how much weight I had gained. And I was really kind of disgusted with myself. I had gained at that point 10 pounds because I went from 155, which is what the weight that I was at my thinnest, which I would probably never go any lower than that for myself ever. And I was about 165, 170 at the time. And I wanted to lose weight. I tried doing diets with coworkers, but nothing was sticking because I didn't realize just how bad my binge eating disorder had really become again. And then I started working at Caribou Coffee. And that's when I started gaining weight more and more and more, because I would start binging on the food at Caribou. I would buy some food at Caribou, eat it, buy it, eat it, buy it, eat it. And I blamed Caribou Coffee for gaining 20 more pounds. And it just kind of snowballed ever since. And that was when I started panicking, when I realized that my binge eating disorder had come back full force, which is when I started doing paleo. And I started doing paleo for a long time. And one of the big clues, and I think I've said this on my TikTok, I may have said this on Twitter too, one of the big clues, I had two really kind of aha moments in my life where I realized that carbohydrates are actually really important. And a lot of people will pass this off. A lot of people who are super big victims of diet culture, and especially like carbohydrates are the enemy kind of diet culture, are going to say, well, it's because you're addicted. It's like cocaine. It's not like cocaine. That's diet culture talking to you. Talk to a dietitian, a registered dietitian. Don't talk to somebody who has a nutritional degree, because that doesn't actually exist. That's not real. It's not a real degree. It's not a real thing you can study. Dietitians are what you should be listening to. Go talk to one. They will tell you that being addicted to carbohydrates is not the same as being addicted to cocaine. Anyway, because that's something that I have heard from people who have said that carbohydrates are the enemy. So I was working at Petco and I was very heavily involved in paleo at the time. So I was not eating bread at all. The most carbs I would get were from fruit, which I didn't really eat a ton of, and potatoes. That was it. It was a very lazy paleo though, so there were a couple of times where some things would sneak in, but for the most part, I was very, very paleo at the time. And I stopped my assistant store manager. I was at the time, the dog and cat department manager. So the stocking manager, but it was a fancy way of saying stocking manager. That position no longer exists. It's now the MOL, the merchandise operational leader. Anyway, so I stopped my assistant store manager at the time, and I said, I think I'm going crazy. She goes, why? And I go, because I am fantasizing. I have fantasized all day of walking over to Subway, sneaking behind their counter, because we had a Subway just around the corner, sneaking behind their counter and just eating their bread. Like, I don't want a sandwich. I don't want anything with it. I just want to eat their bread. And like, I would fantasize this. I would fantasize about this all day. I remember that day vividly. I fantasized about it all day. The next one was when I was going out to brunch with a friend, and I had already given in to the fact that I was going to have something carbohydrate-y that day. I was going to have Eggs Benedict, which has, English muffins. And so I was going to have that, but she was running a little late. So I was already seated. I was waiting for her to come so that we could order. And the people next to me, so I was probably maybe 4 feet away from this kid, like diagonally. They got their food, and I looked at this kid. He was eating pancakes, and I fantasized about going up to this child, taking his plate of pancakes and walking back and eating them. I was going to I fantasized stealing What a child could have been more than 6 years old. I was fantasizing about going up and stealing his food from him. When I brought this up to my dietitian one time, she's like, I brought it up to my therapist. She's like, what does that tell you? I was like, that my body was telling me something that I wasn't listening to, and I was restricting my body from something that it clearly needed. And they're all like, yep, that's exactly what you were doing. You were restricting yourself from like listening to your body. And that's what I love about intuitive eating, because you just listen to your body. You listen to what your brain wants. So like if I'm hungry, I'm like, I'm hungry, what do I want? And I'll think about it, and like, you know what, I really want bread right now. So I'm gonna go, you know, it's not really meal time, so it's a good snack time. So I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna put some peanut butter on some bread and eat that, because that just sounds really, really good. That's what intuitive eating is all about. And a lot of people, you know, I've done a whole video on intuitive eating, but it was like very early on in my kind of journey. And now that I'm kind of further into intuitive eating at this time, I've been able to really recognize that I haven't wanted to binge in months at all. Like the thought of binging, like that's a lot of work. You know, if I'm hungry, I eat. I don't restrict myself. I don't restrict the types of foods I eat. I don't restrict the time. If I'm hungry, I eat something. I understand the level of hunger that I have, and I go, is it meal time or is it snack time? And if it's snack time, I just have a snack that usually tides me over. And if that isn't enough, I have a little extra for a snack. A lot of my snacks now are carrots that I dip in hummus. Like, it's ridiculous how much my body craves now all different types of foods, because I don't sit there and go, peanut butter is bad, or bread is bad, or chocolate is bad. I sit there and go, it's all food. It's all food, and all food has nutritional value to an extent. Sure, there are a lot of foods that are more nutritious than others, but at the same time, I'm not being naughty by eating some chocolate. I'm not being bad. I'm not breaking my diet. I'm not having a cheat day. I am simply just eating. All of those terminologies is exactly what diet culture wants you to do. It wants you to demoralize yourself when you eat those bad foods, because of the fact that then you feel like shit. So then you would end up then binging and gaining weight, and then you just go right back to them and give them more of your money. The amount of money that I have spent on diet culture, I have tried weight loss pills. I can't anymore because I can't have caffeine, but I have tried weight loss pills. I used to buy, when I was on the South Beach diet, I would actually buy, at the time, I don't know if they still have them, but at the time they actually had pre-portioned meals, like meals that were refrigerated, meals that were frozen, and I would go and I would buy those. Like, how much money did I spend on diet culture? I have paleo cookbooks. I have like so many different types of cookbooks out there that, I mean, now I still use them because I still like, obviously, those foods, and I just don't restrict myself. So sometimes I'll make a paleo food. Oh well, I'm not paleo anymore, but I don't restrict myself. It's so freeing to have this knowledge that diet culture is the enemy. It's not carbohydrates. It's not chocolate. It's not fatty foods like we thought in the 90s. It's diet culture. That's the enemy. That's where you need to like walk away. That's where you need to go, I'm done with you. Let's be done with all of this. Diet culture is the enemy. I really highly suggest, if you feel like any of this like pertains to you, anything that I talked about with diet culture, studying up on diets, going from diet to diet to diet, yo-yo dieting, whatever it may be, obsessing about your weight, obsessing about the size of your body, having body dysmorphia, or anything, if any of that resonates with you, I highly suggest you look into the concept of intuitive eating, and don't do it alone. That's the big piece of it. Like I said, I have a team. I am very lucky that not only do I have a good paying job, but that I also have good health insurance that gives me the opportunity to have this team of professionals around me. I know that I am very fortunate, that I am very privileged where that's concerned. I am not denying the fact that I am very, very privileged here. But I highly suggest that if you can spend any kind of money on any kind of professional, I highly suggest an intuitive eating dietitian. I seriously suggest you looking into that, because honestly, it has changed my life. I've been able to stop listening to diet culture. I will now watch TV or a YouTube video or even a YouTube ad. There was a YouTube video I turned off from a channel that I loved because it was too diet culture-y for me, and it was triggering something in my body, triggering something in my brain, and I had to stop. It's so cool because now I can sit there and be like, diet culture. That's diet culture. Something my parents will say, guys, that's diet culture. Anything. Like I see it and I can sense it, and it doesn't affect me anymore unless it's like a 30-minute video. Then it starts to affect me. But I don't know. I am definitely in a much better place than I was last time I talked about intuitive eating, because I still was so, like I said, new to it. But now I'm so like further along, like to the point that my dietitian and I don't meet on a regular basis anymore. Like that's how much I've already like evolved out of this concept of diet culture. So seriously, I seriously hope that you take this and you learn from it and you say, let me look into intuitive eating. And like I said, don't do it alone. Have a dietitian by your side that knows about intuitive eating. Because if you can spend money on one thing and one thing alone, professional to help you on your health journey, get an intuitive eating dietitian. Therapist is also good, because otherwise I also would not have the mental space to be able to do intuitive eating. That's all part of it. So if you guys have any questions or anything like that, or any other topics you'd like me to talk about on my health journey videos, let me know in the comments below. I hope you guys found this entertaining or interesting, or you learned something. If you don't have any questions or any ideas, let me know in the comments below something that you learned either from this video or something you learned that before this video that you agree with. And let me know if you disagree with certain things, because I would love to open up that conversation in the comments below as well, because I am a proponent about dismantling the concept of diet culture and just letting people eat the way they feel like they need to eat. And that's where I'm at. I'll see you guys all next time. Bye. If you guys want to see the first video I ever did where I talked about my weight loss, my weight gain, and all that stuff, you guys can click right here. Otherwise, if you guys want to see the last health journey video I did, you can click right here. Click here to subscribe to my vlogging channel. It's coming back eventually, I promise. And you can click here to subscribe to my main channel. Hit the bell for notifications on both those channels if you would like to never miss one of my videos. And I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.